Greetings. We here at PLD Projects want to make it known that we wholeheartedly support the strikes by both SAG-AFTRA and the WGA against the greedy corporate studio executives. It is a fight for basic human decency. Our reviews, discussions, and critiques are in no way supporting the studios, merely dissecting the art and how these wonderful actors and writers continue to influence us on a daily basis. We thank you. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Projects Review. We are back a week late because it's my fault. I will take the blame. I took a trip this weekend and it kind of threw off our recording schedule a little bit. So hopefully you're not too angry at us being 1 week late. We'll be back on schedule from now on, I promise. But I'm your host, PLD, and of course, as always, with me, my second in command, my command and resistance co-commander, I don't know, the Julie to my Mike now that we're not really a romantic couple anymore. Mike and Julie, I mean, pretty much at this point.
Sure, I'm the gooder here.
You're the gooder, makes me the working one. Okay.
You'd be Julia or Ham, you could take your pick, but I'm definitely Mike.
Fair enough. Lego, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing well, and I'm here to have a long conversation about that graffiti kid because I got thoughts.
All right. I have some thoughts about him as well. Thoughts about a lot of things this week. Specifically, I'm going to get right into it. This is the one I've kind of mentioned. I kind of mentioned a few times already. This was originally scheduled to air. This is an episode called Breakout, by the way. It's technically the third in production schedule, but it didn't appear in its first run. It was originally scheduled to air on November 9th of 1984. But it did not air until May 24th of 1985 after the series had been canceled, because when they reran the first season, as NBC networks tended to do back then, they were pushed to the 9 o'clock out of the primetime schedule. And so somehow it was okay for 9 o'clock, but not okay for 8 o'clock, because it was initially deemed too violent for primetime television. And I know we talk about how things age and date and everything else. And this is one of those cases because I believe both of us just kind of watched and said, I don't really see what's happening here.
I have my main idea about what was too violent, and we'll talk about it, but it had to do with some doggies.
Okay. I had about, actually, no, there's about 3 things I was like, maybe that was too much. I don't know. But it's kind of interesting trying to get back into that frame of mind back in the 80s, like what they consider to be too violent. So I don't know we'll ever find out, but we'll speculate, and we'll let you guys speculate as well, see what you guys think after we describe the scene if you haven't watched it already.
See, I wasn't around in the 80s, and I never had cable, so I don't know.
Okay, that's fair.
I was. VHSs.
I was definitely around the 80s and NBC. I only actually had a few TVs that were just, I'm old enough that I actually had a few of those TVs that were just like not even attached to cable. So I had just the 6, 10, and 13. I had like one of the first big mini TVs I had. It carried around like a big box, but the screen was like this small. It was in black and white. And you had an antenna. It was like for camping and stuff. I kind of had to take that places too. It was not a good time. I really count your blessings for that. As far as that, a lot of good stuff in the 80s. Watching shows and stuff. Count your blessings now.
Yeah, see, I would have missed stuff and I would have been confused.
Absolutely.
Like, I wouldn't know. Did this air out of order, or did I just miss an episode? I wouldn't possibly know.
No clue. I do wonder. I gotta be honest. I don't remember. I think because there was no VCR tapes yet at this point, everything else, I probably watched most of the series. I think I watched all the series when it first came out. When the reruns came, I think I saw this as a new episode, but I didn't remember the old episode having been there already, so I didn't realize the retconning that was going on. But what a weird retcon it is in one season. They have a couple of big retcons coming up. We'll talk about it more next episode when we get the showcase of what exactly was retcon. But some things were developed in this episode, which had to be reintroduced because they couldn't do it otherwise. Specifically, two characters. Our favorite character, Robin, who got some information this episode that she had to relearn from somebody else. And this is actually our first introduction to Kyle Bates, the son of
I
our...
have feelings about him too.
I'm curious as to your feelings, and we're going to get there. He is I will just say, I'll leave it off that he is a very, very 80s character. But we'll get there. I'm not saying the best of the 80s characters. He is kind of we'll get there. But
I literally wrote, great, tall, dark, handsome, bad boy in a leather jacket. Just Holden Caulfield's just what we needed. Long,
pretty
exasperated sigh.
And of course, we had to meet him with his shirt off because he's a bad boy of the 80s. He had his shirt off at first at this point. But
you know what? I gotta say, and this even goes to today. The fact that we never get like a bigger guy in that role is a little ridiculous.
Agreed. I agree. For the big guys out here like myself, I agree with that. I agree with that sentiment. It'd be nice to get a little representation that way. So.
As if they're not any brooding dudes who are in, I don't know, guy sizes.
Right.
XL.
XL is up there. Yeah, exactly.
They can brood just as easily as a small.
Easily. Sometimes even better, if I have to say so myself. But I want to say first off, the beginning of this episode, I'll actually say this out front. I actually had a lot of fun with this episode. I did like it overall. I think there was a lot of good in this episode, a lot of good setup for how the series could have gone if they had committed in some of these directions. But the first thing specifically I wanted to mention is I loved the introduction of the Freedom Network and World Liberation Front. Getting Howard K. Smith back. Obviously, Howard K. Smith was in the original miniseries doing its exact type of thing. It was a great way to start the episode out. You get a little piece of news. It's a great way to get some exposition out. There's a little piece of our show. They get into like Nathan Bates taking over LA. We also got these nice little tidbits of stuff happening around the world, which makes us feel like such more of a world event. So the budget kind of keeps us to LA generally in the surrounding California area. So it sometimes feels a little closed and a little small. This is a way to say, yes, this is going on worldwide.
And I actually really like that. I wrote down, let's see, Kipper Cordisco. I didn't quote it, but I wrote, he pulled a Red Dawn on some aliens in the Midwest.
Absolutely. I loved it. It kind of becomes a running joke for me, like watching these, because you always get the picture of somebody. I'm like, who are these people? Are these like producers' kids? Are they like relatives of people? I don't know, because they're always a picture of somebody.
People who didn't get cast.
Maybe that's what it's just the stock footage, stock pictures and headshots and stuff. But they always have interesting stories. I know they talked about Jerusalem also as well, so it made it really, truly worldwide. I will note that this is the 80s. This is definitely very pro-USA, so they always usually make the U.S. troop, the resistance, be very strong. Like Texas was very strong, the resistance. If they have losses, it tends to be more overseas. I kind of noticed that myself. But, it's the 80s. I've come to accept that as a way of being back then. You can't really argue about it at this point. It's too late now. But so we have that as our first thought with Howard K. Smith. And by the way, that makes this actually technically the first time he appears. But that's another thing that's in a way retcon, because the first appearance now is in the next episode. This is a lost Howard K. Smith. But again, I like it because it actually harkens back to the first one as well. Because remember, we talked about that a lot too. They had the news reports a lot through. That's how they're kind of telling the story.
Yeah,
how they connect the world.
I like that.
It was a nice throwback. So
it was
good
definitely
job. Good production shot. Good choices there. And there's a way also, like I said, to get exposition now, because we do get a little bit of the, like, in case you missed it, Nathan Bates is in charge of LA now, kind of thing.
Yeah, like these episodes, I mean, we're only on the third episode, but it does seem like the plots are carrying through from one episode to the next. This is not like you can pick it up on whatever episode kind of show. Right. But also, it does seem like some time has elapsed between episodes.
Yeah, and they kind of are very vague about that. And I guess that just is a way to showcase. And I guess, again, the Freedom Network being a way to showcase that kind of helps that along a little bit. This is an episodic show, but there's definitely, you're right, these pieces that do travel on, which is why the retcons become something important to a degree. But we'll get there. All right, this episode we open up in Ojai. I talk about being in. I talk about us being in LA all the time. We're actually in Ojai, but that is brought forth from our initial conversation in Liberation Day, where Donovan talks to Julie about Sean being in Ojai. So right away I saw Ojai. I'm like, okay, so Donovan and Ham are up there trying to.
And it's so
find
funny.
Sean.
They're sitting on a park bench reading the paper, and Ham is just next to the sign that says, like, keep your dogs on a leash or something. So funny.
It is so funny. And what's funny to me is they finally realize that Donovan's a wanted man. He actually does at least a little bit of disguise by holding the paper up. Just a little bit.
I mean, dude, like, grow a mustache, dye your hair brown.
Sunglasses, something even.
Anything. Aviators. It's the 80s. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I guess this is
get your baseball cap on even.
I guess this is pre-Top Gun. Were aviators big before that? Okay.
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I was young in the 80s. I'm not that old, but I'm not to remember quite. Like 9 years old, I don't really remember exactly how the aviators were at the time. But I guess Ham is not as he can smile at the visitors. That's not an issue, I guess. So I guess Ham needs to do a little more.
How?
Right.
Diana should be like, I'm gonna need a composite sketch of this man.
Yes.
He's wanted. Like Ham is like should be Diana's number one priority.
Right, because he is the military guy. He's the guy that could do the most damage. Donovan's like,
and he's already had her abducted. Like she knows that he has a vendetta against her, and how, and what part he played in the last miniseries.
Absolutely.
Like if she were a good military statistician, like that would be her number one target over Donovan for sure.
Yeah, at this point, the funny thing was, if you think about it, Donovan, I understand why Donovan was such a top wanted guy in the original miniseries, because he had the tape and he was the guy who had the information. He can get it out there. At this point, Donovan's a cameraman. He's a newsman. I mean, granted, yes, he's been successful with resistance and everything else, but I kind of feel like now he was dropped on that. Like,
as a member of a group.
Right.
And Julie is not wanted and Ham's not wanted, but you target gooder. It gives the opening of Big Trouble in Little China, where it's like, why would people be after specifically Jack Burton out of everyone who was involved in the whole big thing? They're after just
Jack
him.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Maybe that's an 80s thing too, and I never realized it. I don't know. Maybe I have to say. Also, by the way, I'll mention it a couple of times. Again, like I usually do. I usually have the episode playing in the background, so I like to catch things. Did you notice a couple of Mark Singer's nice overactings and with the hands, always going with the hands? Because the first one was in this conversation. Ham asks him.
So much in this episode.
There's a couple of overacting stuff that he does. One of them, it's not that big of a deal, but I think I notice it more because I look for it sometimes. When Ham asks about where's Sean's school at, he's like, it's 2.5 miles out of town. This is big.
Okay, yeah. Now maybe it's because I talk with my hands a lot that I don't really notice it as much.
Growing up in an Italian family, I do too, but I don't know what about it. I don't know. I love it though.
It's not giving like, let me point that way.
I got to do something with my hand.
But I think also it's because it seems natural for him. It doesn't seem like I'm personally the human embodiment of I don't know what to do with my hands.
Gotcha.
For him, it seems very natural.
Yeah. That's what I agree. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands half the time either, so that's why I do it too. But he just, it just is part of his it's like his everything is a choreographed dance with him. Every one of his movements is like there's a step, there's a dance. It's almost like he's got a count in his head. Even like when you start running after people, which he's almost about to do, because we get to meet the person that you had a lot to say on. Spray painting kid, the vandalist.
So the graffiti kid will come to learn that his name is Billy.
Right.
Yes. So honestly, this whole thing, well, we haven't learned this yet, so I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead a little bit, but we do learn that the kids at Sean's school have all been taken by the visitors.
Right.
Absolutely. And so once again, for the umpteenth time, Mike has lost his freaking kid. Like, Mike, honey, sweetie, sit down, stop. Like, just grab Billy. He's your son now. Just take that one. They look identical. In fact, I did think that was Sean at first. I wasn't wearing my glasses, but they look so much alike.
They
Like,
do.
honestly, that kid, he's lost his parents. You lost your kid. It's a match made in heaven. And don't let this one out of your sight. Maybe put a
Right.
leash on it.
It's like replacing. It's like those 80s sitcoms. The pet gets lost, and you replace the pet with the same looking one. Looks like it's all good. You're going to be fine. I mean,
It's
hell,
fine.
you don't even know your son anymore anyway. He was converted. You don't really know him anymore anyway. So this is probably better than your kid, actually.
Was it confirmed that his mom was killed, right?
It was never confirmed. It was
Okay.
never confirmed, technically, which actually, I will let you know, that's a precursor to one of the novels that we'll eventually read. Marjorie actually comes back in one of the novels later on. So I guess, I mean, not that the V canon has ever been really strictly followed. I've got to be honest with you, there's a lot of different things overall. But I kind of feel like this. I remember when I saw that, I read that novel, I looked back and go, I thought she had died, but I never found a line that signified that she was dead, that she was just taken from Sean. And funnily enough, as good a guy as Donovan is, doesn't seem to care where Marjorie is. Like, I want my son back. What about your ex? Granted, his ex was kind of bitchy towards him, so maybe I get it a little bit. But still, you're going to get Sean back, and what are you going to tell him? Yeah, I don't know where your mom is.
Probably sent him to this school to be deprogrammed or something.
Right.
So I don't know. It doesn't seem like he was a weekend dad at best.
Yeah,
Let's just be honest.
That's true. Not necessarily through any fault of his. I feel like Marjorie tended to want to keep a strong hold of Sean. But Donovan also was very much a world traveler for his job. So you get a little bit of both worlds, I think, from that angle. Although it's kind of scary to think that technically, depending on how time went, she might be dead. Because remember, she was probably on the mothership that Robert destroyed. Now, there was time between. We would hope that the people who were on that mothership were taken off before that happened, but we don't really know. Never got a word of that. In a year's time, I would think that all the people would have been taken out. You would think. But we don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, also, do we know how to do we people know how to revive people from that slumber?
I don't know. I don't think we do. This would have been a good case for Martin to have lived, because I bet you Martin has a good idea of how to do it. Because I think if Brian could do it, and since Brian did Sean, although maybe Brian had scientists with him as well, you got to think Martin could do it. Although maybe that would also be a really
some other visitors who I'm assuming were staffed to do that.
Right, technicians of some kind. But well, I don't know though. So, but Marjorie, we don't know. So at this point, it is what it is.
I also wanted to say that this kid was graffitiing on one of the visitor ships, and the visitors were shooting at him. What?
Van.
Oh, van.
It was a visitor van. That's what I love about this series, by the way. It's all about we're going to say budget. So instead of having sci-fi vehicles from the visitors, we're just going to take over human vehicles and just spray paint them and put the visitor symbol on. Good enough. We got a Jeep in here, a couple of Jeeps, a van. The visitors obviously learned to drive sometime between the last couple of years. But yeah, and they're ready to shoot on them. Well, actually, before we get into that, I kind of want to it's wrapped up in what I was going to talk about for a minute. Ojai is supposedly visitor territory. Later on, somebody, Annie, which we'll get to, says something, why would you want to go from an open city to a place where they eat people? And I don't know what you felt about this, but it almost felt like Ojai should have been more war-torn, or should have been because it doesn't feel like any different than Los Angeles. The people are still here. Not. There's more of a visitor presence. People are not really too scared. I mean, they're scared, but it's kind of there's just regular daily life. It almost is back to the miniseries.
It's I don't know. You don't have to mistreat the cattle on the farm. You can let them go out and graze.
That's a good way to put it, I guess.
It's visit. Maybe there are visitors who want, a free range human.
That's
I regret saying that out loud. But
it's the best explanation I've heard, to be honest with you. Absolutely. So it did cause me to stop and think and everything. I just feel like there should have been more of a difference noted somehow. I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
and it makes sense.
Also, I don't fully understand and maybe this is coming from just a difference in time, but like if this was now and a different, outside group tried to take over a city in the US, that just like wouldn't go over very well.
Right, right. I mean, the visitors obviously have the technology and the lasers and stuff, but I just feel like this would not be, at least there would be signs of a struggle or something. But so points off for that. It does not work for me. But
And I mean, I guess it's also acting like sometimes when I'm watching these shows, I feel like these people don't understand how many military bases there are in the US. Like as a military brat, I can say there are a lot. Although I don't know where Ojai is, if I'm being honest.
I don't know either. Actually, I meant to look that up. Let's look that up right on.
Like,
City?
is it
Okay, it's
Central
a city.
Cali?
Let's see.
Is it more like out toward going east? I don't know east of the 405. That's like a different California.
Okay, Ojai is scrolling back out. It looks like okay, so it's like northwest of LA, near Ventura, near the National Forest, Los Padres National Forest, near Santa
Mhm.
Barbara. That area,
Okay.
and
So that's
uh,
really not far away from LA.
no, not far at all.
Also very strange.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also north though. So how far north is it before the red dust starts working? So where's Robert's cabin, by the way? That's what I want to know. I don't know. Did
Yeah.
you ever just tell us where Robert's cabin was? It just was a cabin up in.
I
Yeah.
don't recall them saying.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. Learning geography. This is fun with geography with Lego and PLD. Um,
I'm just
all
gonna
right.
say his cabin was in 29 Palms, because why not?
Sounds good to me. Well,
Put it
that
out
is
in
now
the middle of
canon.
nowhere.
Considering how much canon has followed, that seems like that's canon, and we're going to stick to it. All right, so the kids spray paint the van. Visitors see him. They start tracking him down. Donovan, of course, as Donovan always does,
Gotta
Captain
say the kid.
America, has to start chasing him down. And Lisa Ham, one of my better Ham things, where Ham does is like kind of like look, and he yells, "Good!"
He's like an exasperated dad.
He really is. That's what it is.
Donovan is like Alvin from Alvin and the Chipmunks, and Ham is like I don't remember the dad's name. Dave. Yes, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, he's so frustrated with him. So frustrated with him. So you get this little battle. Donovan and Ham beat up a couple visitors, but more visitors come in. And then Donovan and Ham run off into this wooded section. Of course, it happens to be there. And then we get the big Donovan super roll into the shrubbery because that's what he does best. Ham just comes sliding in. But Donovan makes it a big super roll. I love it. It's good.
So Ham's baseball player and Donovan's an aerialist.
Exactly what it is. I think Donovan would be a great trapeze artist. That's what I think at this point.
Absolutely.
Then we get to see this young woman knocks on the window, sees that they're out there hiding, and invites them in. We learn later on her name is Annie, and she is at this point, I kind of feel like she's a wannabe resistance fighter, but not really quite there because she's there taking care of her mother, who is not happy to see Donovan and Ham. I liked this dynamic because this kind of reminded me of the original miniseries again. Kind of get that dynamic between families, tearing the families apart. And she's a resistance fighter. The mother is kind of a collaborator, not really a collaborator as for like trying to get power, but she's just terrified out of her mind.
She's doing what she feels like she needs to survive for herself. She's putting her own survival above others.
Her and Annie's too. It's like keep her family safe.
Yeah.
My family is not involved. We're going to do this. You're good. And I like again. I like that as an aspect because the weekly series tends to drop off on that, where the miniseries was heavy on the familial dynamic. So it's definitely calling back again, like the Howard K. Smith thing. This is a kind of a callback to the miniseries, which I think would have been more if they had done that more. We could have had a more successful overall series. But it is what it is, I guess, at this point. Next part, after we have this conversation with Donovan and Annie, Annie's a smart cookie, realizes they're not from around here. Donovan tells him what's going on. Donovan gets a little bit of word that the whole academy has been taken, which Donovan doesn't really know what to do at that point because he can't figure out, well, no one knows. Now what do we do? But then we move back. We get to cut to the B plot of the episode, as far as I'm concerned. Um, it's the lesser plot, I'm not going to lie, I think, but there is some good to it. We are back to Elizabeth at the Club Creole, and we learn that Elizabeth's Jedi Power of the Week, part one, is that she can just play the piano.
Yes, I wrote, she's gone from, I'm quoting Julie, a sweet, innocent little girl to a woman. And then I added, and a pianist.
And a pianist. I did like Julie's line and delivery, a very special woman. Faye Grant delivered that just subtly enough to be like, okay, so we all understand that she's something special. It would have worked better if Elizabeth wasn't being kind of pushed down our throat, so to speak, in a way, just kind of shoved into her. Like, you got to like Elizabeth, she's special. This is it.
I just hate everything about it.
That's fair. That's fair. I get it. I don't like the fact.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I very much prefer like the socio-political and just the questions about humanity that
Yes.
we are first presented with V, and then the turn towards this is just it's Star Wars soap opera.
It is, and we can tell right away that's one of the worst parts about this plot is that we realize that this is going to be a major plot point for the rest of the series. Diana wants a Star Child, and the Resistance can't give her the Star Child, so that Elizabeth basically becomes a living MacGuffin. Unfortunately, for a lot of the plot, and that doesn't work exactly for what you say. And that's why the A plot works so well, because all the Donovan and Ham stuff tend to be more of what the original miniseries was. This is the other stuff. I mean, I even hate the fact that, like, I want to get your take on this, but it seems you hate everything. But I hope you agree with me on this. I just didn't like that Elias became kind of a little bit of a prick. Like, how long is she gonna stay here? How long we got her here? Like doesn't seem to be like Elias.
I thought it was also just in terms of storytelling fully unnecessary, given we come in with him being open to people staying there and hiding out there, and then at the end, like at the very beginning of the first episode. And then at this episode, he's like, no, I don't want people here. But by the end, he's back to being like, she could stay here forever. It's just totally unnecessary to get us back to status quo. It didn't move the needle anywhere.
Exactly. And it just made him look like a prick, which is not what you need from him. Elias can look like a prick. I don't mind Elias looking like a prick because, quite frankly, he kind of went through that change of being a little bit selfish more. He was, not selfish, not quite selfish, but he was taking advantage of his fame to get a seat of power a little bit. He had like the Club Creole going. He took advantage of him being.
Oh, I totally disagree with that. But
I think that's really. I think that's totally what he did. He used.
I think he is always the type of person to do what he can with what he got.
Well, that's what okay. So we don't actually really disagree. I'm just saying he got some fame, so he used it. And he got himself in a place in the open. But I always thought there was lines that he wouldn't cross as far as loyalty goes. So he will use the situation to his advantage, but he's not going to but throwing people out of his life who he's loyal to felt off about his character and a step too far. So I don't mind him being a little bit like taking advantage of a situation, but this was a little too far for me.
And even being like, I don't know, scared of the visitors didn't inherently seem very much like something he would do. It just the whole thing just felt like very out of character.
Yes and no. That part did. The scared of the visitors thing, I think, could be seen as a natural, maturity thing. Like, back in the day, he was running with his gangs, running with his friends, he didn't care about anything. He was like, whatever. Now he does actually have something. Like not a house, but this is his house, so he has to protect his house. So the visitors coming to his house is a little bit more of a scary thing for him at this point. But you're not wrong in terms of it shouldn't affect him overly. Sometimes it gets a little far with him. But you're right. This whole B plot is a little wrong. It just advances Elizabeth in the wrong way. We do get. I forgot before we say anything else. Just have the one good thing about the plot is we do get Willie's schlub of the week, guardian angle. So I like that.
I mean, I'll be honest. Sometimes I double check that make sure that I wrote angel instead of angle or vice versa.
Right.
They're paranoid about it. I understand Willie's flub there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the one thing that you can always look forward to, and I like the running joke, and so I'm glad they stick with that throughout because it's worth it. It's worth it. It makes me chuckle every time. Good old Willie, even though it seems like by now, shouldn't he? At some point, he's got to be able to be good enough with the language that he should be okay with it by now. But I'm okay
Well,
with
we
him
never
not
see him reading, so he's just like picking up on things from I'm not sure where. Like, where is he getting this?
That's a good call. Maybe I wonder how the visitors learn language. They
And
have like
in English, this is at least his third language. So our little Willie's a polyglot. I think I would have liked better since I think he learned Arabic first. If how he was arranging his sentences was different because they do that
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting way to go. Absolutely. I don't know. I probably would have been too subtle for the 80s. I
Oh,
would not have understood that. They would never have gotten that.
so also I
But
live with someone who speaks that language, so I just maybe know a little bit more.
that could be. I wouldn't have gotten it in the end. I honestly wouldn't have understood that. But it would have been cool to they have done that, and I learned about it afterwards. And I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. It's very right. That's the way the story should go.
And I think it would have been fun because like sometimes my roommate will leave notes, but she'll leave them in like Arabic, which girl, I don't read that. It just looks like squiggles to me. I don't even know how to Google that. Like Google Translate, I don't even know what to do here.
Damn.
And I think that would have been fun. Like Willie was just like taking like orders and writing them down in Arabic instead of English.
I was like, what the hell is this?
That's what he learned.
Which is, by the way, it's funny that they had a restaurant there, and it's Elias and Willie, and you never see any other staff members. So like, who's doing the cooking? Who's doing the? I mean, Elias is never doing anything. He might be cleaning. He might get a drink for somebody. He might clean out a glass. But Willie seems to be taking the orders, being the bartender, being the. He must.
Okay, I'm gonna throw something out there.
Okay.
I, under no circumstances, would ever trust Willie in the kitchen to cook.
Neither would I.
That I don't even know if there are enough fire extinguishers. Simply no.
Not. And not even that. I just couldn't even think like he's an alien who like even if he's a vegetarian, he might be a vegetarian, but that's why he doesn't eat people. I don't know. I mean, that's what it is. But what kind of he can't be a good cook, can he?
But also, can they be vegetarian? Or are they carnivores, so they have to eat some kind of meat?
That's the running joke I had because Willie was he didn't eat humans, so maybe he was a vegetarian. That was my running joke back in the day. I think that actually made its way into a book or some point, or maybe
like hamstertarian.
Maybe that could be. I mean, it's like some vegetarian. Can vegetarian eat fish, or is it? I can't remember.
That's a pescatarian.
Pescatarian?
Nope, that's religion.
That's religion.
It definitely starts with a P. No, pescatarian's a religion. Pescatarian is a diet. There we go.
That's right. Okay. I know some kind of. I'm a carnivore myself, so I never really got into.
I'm a pescatarian. I should know how to pronounce it. I pretty much just eat veggies, but also sometimes fish. I had a fish taco tonight, for instance.
Oh, there you go.
Taco.
Well, maybe. Well, maybe that's what Willie is to a degree. Maybe he just has or something, the visitor version of that, where maybe hamsters.
Why aren't these visitors eating fish? Do they have to eat hamsters? Just go get yourself a goldfish, Willie.
That keeps them. That's why you see Willie running a pet store. Oh, that'd be bad. That'd be a funny story, though. I think almost like an SNL skit or something.
Like, what if they were eating other lizards?
And they really would be cannibals, like people were calling them before. I would think that'd be more cannibalistic if you're eating
it would be.
Or iguanas or something like that.
Also,
tastes like chicken, I guess.
Ugh.
Hard to eat, I would think. I think it'd be really gamey.
I mean, honestly, out of all these things, I think people would be the worst to eat.
Yeah.
And also, considering our diets, I just wouldn't.
Ooh, that's true. But they did like fattening us up. That's what they said. So maybe they liked us fat. I don't know. Who knows?
I don't even trust cows. I would just be trying to give them. Okay, wait. This is the 80s. Where are the visitor workout videos? Where are the visitor diets? Infomercials? I'm sorry. I don't believe it for 1 second that those don't exist.
They gotta be there, and they have been a mothership. Maybe we'll get there at some point in the series. We'll see much more of the life on the mothership, and then we'll find those kind of people hanging out. I want to see it. They should have been there if they're not there. I like hearing where your mind's at. Anyway, we'll go back to our main plot of the story. I'll keep us on track a little bit. I don't know why we end up going off the rails so many times anyway. And that's both of our faults usually, but
yeah, probably more mine. I just have so many questions about life, and
I love your questions. I really do. Because you always have a question. I'm always like, I never thought of that, but I want to now. I want to dive deep into that now. So. But I go back to the A-line, the A-plot, Donovan and Ham leaving Annie behind, only to get captured right away because Mama tossed them in. And I think I mentioned before, one of my favorite moments in here was the sheepish look on Donovan's face where Ham gives him the stink eye, like, this is what you do. After just saying, actually, you have to play the damn hero. What else do? The kid gets zapped? And sure enough, this is what I'm talking about. And Donovan's like, yeah,
well, we don't get to see like what's become of the school. Like maybe them going there would have been even more dangerous.
True.
Like maybe that was a trap because they knew Sean was there and they are after Donovan. So you know what? We're gonna General Akbar this, okay? If anything, Donovan probably saved them from a trap.
That's a good point. Ham wouldn't believe you in a heartbeat, but Donovan, Donovan would pull that out of his ass and say, "Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was saving us from a trap."
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm gonna retcon my reality.
I like it. This is right after 1983, so Admiral Akbar is definitely out there. He knows Donovan definitely.
Well, I mean, in their world, they probably didn't get the last Star Wars, because I mean, the film industry probably shut down because of the visitors or their propaganda videos.
Oh, that could be said. Well, May of '83. It's right. May of '83 is right when V came out, and that's right when Return of the Jedi was supposed to come out. So I bet Return of the Jedi was still released in theaters at that point.
But do you think George Lucas would have been inspired by the visitors and written more sequels before he did the prequels?
I think he absolutely would have. It absolutely would have. He would have gotten Bosk movies, the Trandoshan Bounty Hunter for Empire Strikes Back, which looks like a lizard. So I think we get that. Definitely be more heavily in Jabba's palace creatures, I think. I think this could have been a new generation of Star Wars movies. George Lucas would have loved it. I think that's, wow, what a way to think about it. Return of the Jedi bombing maybe a little bit just because of the movie industry, but then it rebounds. And actually, here's a more important question for you then. Do you think George Lucas was involved in Lizard Kill starring Elias Taylor? Since Elias did mention the movie Lizard Kill in his first film.
That's an interesting idea. Maybe.
Who directed Lizard Kill? Or maybe George probably produced it. I don't know. It's got to be a big name.
I want to say Ron Howard.
Ron Howard? That could have been a Ron Howard film. I mean, Cameron was big at the time. Maybe she shifted from Terminator to Visitors instead.
Yeah, I don't think he would do an action movie like that though. In that's called Lizard Kill. That just doesn't feel Cameron.
Yeah,
I could see Howard doing it. Huh.
I could do that maybe. Yeah, because
it's too early for Bay, but Michael Bay would have been all over this. It was the right time.
Michael Bay's remade this film about 3 times, I think, at this point. Might have called it different things, but definitely would have done something to that effect.
Yeah, like Lizard Die.
Die, exactly. Maybe we can get experimental Tony Scott to come and do something. We did Beverly Hills Cop 2 later on. You could maybe do a Lizard Kill with Elias. Say, like, Elias is like more a wisecracking kind of guy. I think we could do that.
And I feel like DC would do the comic spinoffs.
Yeah, which they actually did. So would make sense. Hey, look at that. Like, that's that.
Well, leave it in the comment. With the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm all over this.
That would absolutely happen. Especially, I just watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem today. I think that would
it looks so good.
It's so fun, I gotta say. I went in, I don't know what I expected or anything, but I just wanted to have a good, fun time. And it really was a good, fun time, like a history of the Turtles all in one movie. It kind of touched on the originals and had a little bit of the cartoonish era, but it was like serious enough where you can have a good time with it. So I definitely recommend. As we get far away. Cowabunga, dudes. People, leave your comments. Let us know who you think directed Lizard Kill. And or who was your dream director for Lizard Kill. and who
Wait,
does
this is
crossover?
important. I actually don't know, and I love this movie, but I feel like whoever directed Buckaroo Banzai definitely did Lizard Kill.
Oh, you know what?
Absolutely. And I feel like it maybe had some of the same cast.
That actually could be. And Peter Weller would have been a good character in there. You know, Jeff Goldblum's in there. We can always have Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Clancy Brown, all of it.
Clancy Brown, I want easily. It's funny. I think it's the only movie he ever directed. He directed 2 movies. W.D. Richter. He directed this and Late for Dinner. He wrote a lot of things. Otherwise.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
I never heard of that one either, to be honest with you. But he did write or co-write Slither from 1973. He was a writer on Big Trouble in Little China, which makes sense. And Needful Things, starring Ed Harris.
Oh, yes.
So there you go. There we go.
King.
Anybody else in the comments? Leave your director choice. Leave your writer choice. Anything you want to talk about? We're gonna maybe eventually we'll make Lizard Kill a reality. See what the story was. We'll go from there. All right, moving on then to the next bit. We go back to the C plot, which is kind of related to the A plot. Gets related to the A plot eventually. I mean, they all actually eventually overlap. But Nathan and Diana. Diana comes to Nathan basically demanding Elizabeth. Nathan kind of bluffs that he knows where she is or has her potentially. And we get our first look at your favorite bad boy of the 80s stereotypical character, Kyle Bates, in a picture at least. Picture, of course, is not the bad boy picture. It is the prep picture with the kind of the I don't know if it's on there or not, but you expect like the alligator symbol on the shirt. I thought it's like that. This is what Nathan wanted his son to wear, kind of when he was younger, kind of thing. That's the picture on Nathan's desk. But it's interesting. I think that Kyle Bates, as an introductory character in this episode, is a good introduction for him. It's a good character. I don't want to say archetype. They needed somebody like a Kyle Bates because what he's going to become in the episode, at least in the beginning of his V career, so to speak, he kind of becomes a little bit of the wild card that Ham was initially. Ham is kind of like more in tone with the Resistance at this point, a little bit more a step. I mean, they had the parting of the ways, the assassination. Kyle is kind of like the reluctant Resistance person at this point, where Ham is now kind of all in on it. I think that's the big difference.
For me, when we meet him, I'm like, oh, this dude just walked off the set of 21 Jump Street.
Absolutely. This is definitely a studio put forth. We need this kind of 21 Jump Street in this show. You don't have anybody. Mark Singer's too goody good. Donovan's too goody good shoes. Michael Ironside, unfortunately, I love you, Michael Ironside. You're not hot enough. You're not a hot young guy. The old
have you heard his voice?
Oh, I get it. The old balding look doesn't hit the 80s girls at that point, I guess. That's what I've been told. I don't know. So I think about it's true. Like for shows that usually have like really extremely good looking characters at the forefront, the V has kind of like not the stereotypical good looks.
Yeah,
Robert Englund is in there.
I'll put it in a 21st century way. V is not on the CW.
Exactly. So that's the best way to put it. Exactly the case. Donovan could have fit there, but he's a little on the older side.
I feel like they're all pretty.
Yeah.
Like they're good looking people, but they're not like washboard abs. I just walked out of, the
model shoot,
a photo shoot. Like that's not them.
Absolutely.
And I actually like it so much more for that.
I do too. So I do think Kyle is a studio placement for that reason. But I do come to like him somewhat. There are times I like him. What was that? You're on the fence? Okay. I think you'll come to have some liking for him, but is also many times where you're kind of like.
The only thing I really remember from watching this is that he has a thing with Elizabeth. That
is the creepy fact that's hard to get over. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh no, I might have feelings about that later.
It's tough to deal with. It's hard to imagine that situation, what you would do, considering everything that goes, how that kind of develops in a way. But we'll get there. We're not there yet. This is just Kyle, which we meet in the real life shortly after, who happened to be the same internment camp that Donovan and Ham are brought to. We get to see Kyle at work. And also Robin is there. We finally discover, no idea how Robin got caught. She got caught. I like that, though. I kind of like sometimes like they waste time going like, oh, I got caught doing this. Or I mean, Robin just at the camp. She got caught. That makes sense because she was running. Remember, as we said, we're a place where there's nothing but no trees. No, where is she running? Where are you going, Robin? So she's probably caught up like 2 minutes later.
She's pretty much out in the open.
Right. So she's pretty much caught 2 minutes later after she ran.
And also, she left her car abandoned. Like, you don't think that's going to be obvious? Girl.
Of course, here's the bad news about that situation. The retcon of it means that she doesn't really get caught. That's a spoiler for next episode. She's just kind of wandering around. And so this actually makes a lot more sense. So I'm going to go with this version. Luckily, there's enough that's not retcon. Like, there's luckily you can kind of get over the reintroductions of the next episode so that this can still fit in your overall canon. That's the way I look at it, because I do like the episode. So, but of course, with Robin is Xander Berkeley.
Yes.
We were talking about that before. Xander Berkeley, there's a couple of guest stars in this series of people who become people, so to speak. And Xander Berkeley is one of those people. We both have loves for him for different reasons. I loved him in, of course, Apollo 13. In Air Force One as the shit weasel who betrayed Harrison Ford. The Rock, 24. And of course, you pointed out one specifically. I'll let you have it. Go ahead.
Terminator 2. He's John Connor's foster dad who gets killed by the T-1000. One of my new favorite 80s movies, Deadly Dreams, ridiculous movie, and of course, my love, Mommy Dearest.
Which was his debut, actually. Mommy Dearest was his debut. So.
What a film to debut in.
Seriously. I mean, look at the credits of this guy. I mean, look down at it. Volunteers, Sid and Nancy. Walker, with Ed Harris, by the way, also. Great movie there. Internal Affairs, The Rookie, A Few Good Men. Apollo 13, Leaving Las Vegas with, of course,
Nick Cage.
There you go. I let you have that one as well.
Yeah, because I was looking at, he was in a few movies with Nick Cage, and I think he's just one of those people that he's kind of like one of those kind of background guys, kind of like Dick Miller, who we've also seen in this show, that's just in everything. This guy has like 200 credits on IMDb, but he's just someone that isn't the main cast, so you might not notice him. But this is a working actor. This dude has been in so much.
I kind of feel like he is so dependable that he's known around the studios. Like, we need somebody, secondary guy, to kind of fill in. He has a little bit of a part. He has maybe a little action role. He's got a couple of good lines. Xander Berkeley is the kind of guy who can fill that role. Like, he's got it. He'll elevate the material, and we're good.
Definitely, so. Definitely. But can I say what happens to him?
Sure, because you can tell about his being a walking exposition.
So this man is not having a good time at this work camp, and he decides to take a walk into the sand. And I wrote he was either eaten by a graboid or fell into a Sarlacc pit,
or a little bit of both.
Possibly, but we just see him sink in the sand, and he is no more.
Yes, Xander Berkeley, his entire character of Isaac is basically the walking exposition to show us what the Krivet is, as they're named, the Krivet. It is definitely Tremors wants to be like Tremors took this and ran with it. I think Dune is a little bit of Dune, obviously, in there. Well, Tremors came out before. I think it came out before Tremors. So Tremors
did come out before Tremors, but hey, man, Tremors is clearly ripping off Jaws. How dare you?
I think that Tremors loves V. I guarantee the people behind Tremors loved V. I guarantee you they.
Ron Underwood's never even heard of V.
I would challenge that in a court of law, or at least I'd go meet him and say.
Although, Mark Singer and Kevin Bacon do kind of look alike.
They did. Let me tell you something.
Fred Ward does have some Ham vibes.
That's true. That is very true, actually. Honestly speaking, when I watched A Few Good Men, the first time I saw A Few Good Men, I watched it in theaters. I didn't really know who Kevin Bacon was at the time very much. I kind of knew of him. But the way his hair was cut and the uniform, I was like, is that Mark Singer? So yes, I agree. Bacon and Singer do have a lot of facial similarities. But yeah, so the Krivet. I have thoughts. Like, I like the idea. kind of. I like the idea that the aliens have their own species that they've probably brought from their world.
But
Maybe they
for
have a
why?
maybe they're well. It seems to them Diana would have like as a punishment device kind of thing in a way.
But how
Maybe
is it
they have,
stored on this ship? I have many a question.
I
Like, does
do
it have to
too.
live in sand?
I think so.
Can it
They're basically
leave?
sand sharks.
Like, can it just go through? Can it move from Ojai to Odeska? Like,
I
what are its limits?
we don't really know, and it's okay not knowing at first, as long as you learn later on. I will say that there is a book where we learn a little bit more about the Crivets and what they can and cannot do,
I also
called
wonder.
The Crivet Experiment.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, it's a book based on the
But
Crivets.
I wonder if this was. I'm assuming this is for budgetary reasons.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily know if this is the most creative way to go about it because I do like the idea of an unseen monster.
Mhm.
I think that generally tends to be very effective in horror films where
Right.
you literally cannot see what is after you,
Right.
but it's that you know where your limitations are. Like you can't go past that, or something very bad will happen to you.
Right.
I feel like maybe the way they did this visually wasn't great.
No, and that was definitively a budget thing, I think.
And I think
I think they had an idea that what they wanted to do, and they just couldn't make it work with the cheap
Yeah.
amount of budget that they had.
so. I'm a big fan of Lost, and I think
Okay.
I think it's the 5th season when we start doing like the time travel stuff. But they have these big like towers, and if you walk between them, it makes your head explode.
Right,
So
right.
I feel something like that would have been a lot easier, but you could just do like a nosebleed. Like how
Yeah.
much is a little low nosebleed thing?
Right. You're not wrong. I think that with the budget that they knew they had, they probably should have gone a different direction. I like the swing. I like the idea behind it. If you had a lot more of a budget they could
Well,
show, it could have been done better.
my
But
thing is like generally when there's a low budget, you get more creative. I feel like they saw they had a low budget and went lazy and not creative.
I would think, given what I know about the behind the scenes stuff, I almost feel it might have been less about being lazy and more about being rushed.
Mm.
As in, like they had to get things done. They didn't have time to really do it as well as they wanted to, and they could we'll work around it and we'll try to make it look good. And it failed, unfortunately.
Okay, but if this had come out after Tremors, do you think we would have had a Graboid puppet?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, 100% it would have happened that way. Real quick before because so we'll step back, I guess, because we do have the sequence where Isaac goes out there and he gets sucked down by the sand crivet monster thingamajigger. That's actually the better one. Jumping way far ahead, the end of the episode where the visitor gets pushed into the thing and he does basically the sand angel. That's the worst one.
What is the crivet even doing? Because with Isaac, it looks like he's being dragged down very slowly. Like it almost looks like quicksand, except it's not wet. And even quicksand might have been better.
Yeah, that's true. Made a whole motor quicksand. That could have worked, but I don't know. Again.
See, now if you're gonna do like powers and stuff, wouldn't it be more interesting if they could communicate with alligators and they had a moat of alligators?
That could have been cool.
Because alligators are terrifying.
When this gets remade, we'll make sure something like that happens instead.
But it has been remade. Do they have alligator powers?
When it gets remade second time.
When we have an actual creative team behind it. I see what
absolutely. Exactly.
All offense intended.
So here is my next bit of Mike Donovan hand acting and everything else. Isaac and Robin have the conversation. This is before Isaac walks out. We jump to Donovan, and this is the sequence where Donovan decides to test the wires, see if they're hot. He throws the bucket up and everything else. I don't know what he's doing. I have it up right at this moment. As it shifts to him, Donovan has his hand out, like he goes from Robin and Isaac, and it shoots to Donovan at this in front of this tree, and he goes like this, put his hand out like he's almost like he's waving towards Robin or something like that. But then he just kind of turns away. He goes, and starts looking. I don't even know what he's doing with
I
his hand.
feel like maybe that was like they had started filming something.
Maybe it
Maybe
could
that's
be.
something else and they left that in, or they cut something out, and it just was not good editing.
That might be what it is. Maybe he was having a conversation. Maybe Donovan was talking to the kid, to Billy, or he was talking to him or something like that. But it's just kind of the way they edited it out. I'm like, what are you doing there, Mike, with your hand there? But anyway, he tests the wire. Obviously, this is going to come into play later on. I love that he's talking to himself, but I also love the fact that he throws a big pail up, shocks everything, all these sounds, and no one even notices.
Yeah, they're not being very observed at this place.
Right.
At all.
It's the Cribbits. I mean, they may mention there's not that many guards, but not even the people around. You see people walking around behind him. They're not even perturbed with the data that somebody's throwing something on electric wire.
Maybe they want them to know that they're trapped.
Maybe that could be. That could be it. I don't know, but it was a little weird. Then we jump over to Ham, who meets Kyle, and I always forget the other guy's name. Kyle. And
I wrote discount Michael Gross.
That is a good definition. I was going to say something like he's a little bit of a Magnum PI. Michael Gross is actually better, I think, than that. Actually, good call. A little bit buffer, Michael Gross, I think, though. A little bit.
Does have a good mustache.
He does. I appreciate the mustache. I appreciate a good mustache game. I didn't know how I felt about how Ham was interacting with them. Ham felt a little timid with them at first. I kind of feel like Ham would have been like I'm the big guy in here, and you're going to listen to what I say, and you're going to do what I tell you to do. It's a different tactic for him, maybe.
I felt like he was, confident. He's like, "You don't want to listen? That's fine.
Okay.
I'll wait. I'm a patient man."
Okay. I felt a little off with it. It is until later on, of course, when Donovan needs a diversion. That's when it happens, and that's when I get to see one of the best shit-eating grins in the 1980s.
Yeah. But also, I feel like Ham is still kind of annoyed at the whole situation he has found himself in because of freaking Gutter. So he's like, you know what? I'm just not today, Kyle. Not today.
Like Kyle and Discount Michael Gross, or steroid Michael Gross. But he does do a good job. It is a great fun fight sequence there. But of course, Ham and Kyle get taken, and Discount Michael Gross gets away scot-free, and they get put in the hot box.
I felt like the editing was weird here too, because it's like they get taken away, and then we kind of cut to them being let out of the hot box, and they've clearly been in there for a while.
Right.
Maybe I just missed the scene. I don't know. It just seemed very abrupt. Like I got what they were showing. Like it's very easy to understand, but it just felt abrupt, perhaps.
It is a little bit. It's kind of strange that they do that. I mean, in between, you had Donovan talking to Julie, to Robin, kind of updating her on the situation.
Yeah.
Which we learn he doesn't really want to be there. He does not want to be there at all at this point. He's like, he does. We learn right away. We kind of cut into the scene where he's already told her about her dad. He's like, I'm sorry about your father. He died a hero, etc. Does not get to tell her about Elizabeth Roy, though. I don't think he knows how, which frankly, I completely understand. Because how do you say, yeah, your 2-year-old is now she looks like she's 18. And,
so yeah, she aged up. Oh, look at the time. Gotta go. Bye, Robin.
Not quite a kid anymore. See ya.
He was giving, I want to pawn this responsibility off on someone else. He's very not Donovan.
No, it's not.
It was very funny.
I do think I'll give him credit. Maybe it was kind of thing where
above my pay grade.
How can you tell that? How can you tell her this? It's something you got to see to believe. Really.
Way above my pay grade. But you've already seen her age up. So
that's true. That's true.
She aged up again.
That he could have gone that route. But he definitely didn't want to, and it was above his pay grade. Speaking of pay grades, though, we get to see a scene where Julie is hired full time by Nathan Bates and sucked into the trap. Sucked into a big trap where Nathan convinced her this whole thing is a stall, a bid for time. We're working on defeating the visitors. Come help us out. And Julie's like, all right, I'm on board with that.
Honestly, was so dumb. She's so clearly the kind of person, if you're honest and upfront with her about the situation regarding, this visitor who's like has your son and and she's threatening him, his life's in danger, you can't find him. Like, she definitely would have done what she could to help.
Right.
They
Absolutely.
probably could have gotten him out of that work camp. He never would have needed to find Elizabeth in any way, shape, or form. They both could have, kept their integrity in this situation,
Hmm.
and gotten what they wanted without giving the visitors anything. But he had to be
Hmm.
a little liar.
Hmm. Well, he also has the ulterior motive. Remember, he is in lust with Julie and wants her
I don't know.
beneath
I
him
mean,
in several different ways. Um,
I'll post bulletin PSA for men in the 80s. Chicks like it when you're honest.
Nathan has got the whole "I have money, so I don't need to be honest" thing going on. I think that's what's happening there. Not the best way to do it, but let's face it, it's a very 80s way to do it. Actually, that's a very just general way to do it, unfortunately. Um, but as soon as Julie agrees, that's when he drops the bombshell. Yep, the first thing you can do to help me, get me Elizabeth. Of course, Julie's like, fuck. Now I know what's going on. So we go back to the Club Creole at that point, and Elias has allowed the visitors to start eating there, which is actually probably a good idea in a
Yeah.
way. It's kind of like if you don't want to cause any concern, keep your enemies closer, that kind of thing. Um, there's some funny jokes between the patrons who have some dark humor. I wonder what they're going to order. Hopefully, not one of us.
I'm like, "Ha, ha, 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 ha." It's like,
Really?
what? And I was eating with someone and that was their joke. I'm like, chick?
It's a little bit, yeah. Okay, all right.
It's just icky.
It's very
It's
icky.
not a dinner conversation.
But
Maybe
out
dessert, but not dinner.
exactly. You got to let some time before you let out those kind of jokes. Um, Elizabeth is playing the piano because Elias puts her out there, and of course, here we get our second look. Our second look at the Mark of Zahn. Uh,
Okay, this is so easily hid. Girl, Willie, everyone. Get this chick gloves. Get her some makeup. It is not that hard.
no, it's really not. You could tattoo over it if you wanted to, even tattoo over it or something. You could use anything you could have done. But no, it's out there. And the visitors,
A Band-Aid. Like, it's just there's so many options. And also, how are all of these aliens just knowing to look there?
that was a great question. Script writers are they are all powerful, so they make
Like,
these.
maybe it would have been more interesting if that was already something that was like part of their culture that
Right.
like I don't know, if like they shook hands like this for greetings or something. I don't know, but like nothing.
No,
Nothing.
nothing. All of a sudden, it was introduced an episode ago, and all of a sudden now it's like, oh, this is how we're doing things now. Okay,
Oh,
all right.
and she immediately runs outside into a back alley like a dumb blonde in a horror movie. Girl, this is not Friday the 13th, part 6.
Which right, of course, she does her. This is her audition for Friday 13th Part 6 at this point, and I will say, sad to say, this isn't the first time that Elizabeth does the dumb blonde in a horror movie routine. Not
Oh,
the best sign
Lord.
at all. It is a little bit much. It's a little bit much. Again, I love Jennifer Cook. I think she does well with what she's given. Unfortunately, sometimes what she's given is not the best.
And also, it is very annoying that they age her up while simultaneously maintaining this like infantilization of her.
Yeah,
It's not.
yeah.
It's annoying. If you're gonna age her up, then age her up.
Age her up, right? Exactly. I think they start to do that a little bit towards the end when she actually starts speaking more clearly at the end. At least that's a step in the right direction, not a big step, kind of a baby
Or
step in
just,
that direction.
just have her communicate in sign language.
Something like that. Absolutely, that's the way it should be. But
I know it's the 80s, but like pretty sure that existed back then.
it definitely did. Now, speaking of badly written material versus actors, we also get to see a little bit more from Roller, who is such a schlub And I'm happy to report that I think this might be the last episode we have to see Roller as Nathan Bates' like top agent guy or whatever. He's so bad. Like it doesn't have a lot to do, so I can't really rag at him too much. But every line read, I'm kind of like, "This is the guy you got. This is your top notch guy."
I'm being
Buckingham Tyler.
100%. I just
Yes.
called him Lackey, and I didn't know who you were talking about at first.
This is yes, Lackey is his main thing. Luckily, after this, he gets replaced in an upcoming episode. I want to say next episode. I might mistake him. I'm not sure. His replacement's much more fun to watch and charismatic, and actually impacts the scenes a little more.
Okay, but so I was watching Enter the Dragon earlier,
Okay, all right,
and it's like I'm just saying, if I was the writer, I would definitely have someone like Bolo. I don't know what his name was in the movie, but he was also in Bloodsport. Um,
right.
um, like as his lackey, just because think how interesting that would be. It would
Oh yeah,
be
Bull
much
Young.
more compelling, and you're giving this like smaller character a lot of dynamic, and it just making very fun to watch. Like writers really need to think about doing stuff that's like really off the wall and creative like that. Also, I just like Bolo.
You know what? I agree. I will say, do you remember the guy who replaces him, who replaces Roller at all?
No.
Okay. His name is Aki Aliong, and he actually is closer, much closer to Bolo than him. He's just not as built,
Yes.
but he's definitely a more interesting version. Like, he feels like Aki could have been in a one of those kind of Carpenter-esque 80s movies if he had got given the opportunity to kind of like be a little more cartoonish. But he's definitely a better version than Roller. I got to tell you that. I'm glad about that because Roller is definitely no threat. He is the guy that you're easily going to walk over every time. So it'd be quickly, you'd hate to watch him come back and back and back.
And like even then, like you keep naming him, I'm just like Lackey.
Ooh, Lackey. That's it. Yeah, Lackey.
No on-screen presence
No.
whatsoever.
Nope. None at all. And I had to fight. I think I remember his name so well only because one year, one watch through, I really specifically went back and found out what it was. So I had to search to find it. And so once I found it, it was like, I found it. Okay. So now it's going to stick because I know it because I had to search for it. Anyway, he does have a good idea that if he's going to find Elizabeth, he wants to try to track out the Club Creole because that's where at least the only known member of the resistance, besides the one that Nathan Bates hired, who is probably off limits, I guess. I'm guessing that Nathan's going to make her off limits any kind of interrogation at this point, anyway. Going to see Elias's place would be a smart decision. I mean, that's where the resistance
Also
going to be anywhere.
important to note that they're working on the photo of her as a little girl.
Right. Yes, I forgot to mention that's true. Nathan Bates and everybody is working on the photo as a little girl, which is why Elias felt so okay putting her out there playing piano.
Without a glove or a band-aid.
Right. Marquezan out there naked as the eye can see. And then, but like you said, she runs out into the alley. By the way, the secret hideout to the
Yeah, I wrote that too. They just didn't really think about this at all.
Like, I wonder, is it like, I guess what it could be, and I could be wrong, is because they showed us that the entranceway to the base was in like the freezer. Do they go up out of the freezer and go back out the door that way, like out the main door that way? Is that possibly what it is? We'll have to table this decision because there's something that happens later on that still doesn't work for me. But I don't know. That's what I have to think of it now. Otherwise, it's just pretty stupid because right there, the visitors can walk right in and there'd be the resistance headquarters just at that point. Wow, that's dangerous. But Elizabeth comes in, gets tracked down by these two aliens who saw her with the Marquezan, and we get Jedi power number 2, telepathic connection with doggies. And the dogs.
She's Dr. Doolittle.
Dr. Doolittle, that's a good place. They attack and they protect her. Now, this is, I believe, what you think might be number 1.
Yeah, because so like this episode was not allowed to air at the time slot at that time because it was too violent, and then I can't really think of anything else in the episode other than this. Like even because I was watching it, even thinking like, okay, I'm waiting for the violent part to happen, and it got to the end, I'm like, oh, now I have to retroactively go back and figure out what it could be because nothing stood out to me as possibly being too violent. Um,
It's the aftermath, really. It's the
yes,
aftermath. It's after
yes.
we go back and the Elias and Julie, who Julie gets upset because Elias is like, "Have you met my new piano player?" Like, all confidently, even though there's no piano being played, obviously. Like, I don't know what Elias is hearing at this point. And Julie kind of gets the whole. Julie does have the great line, like, "Well, how are they gonna know who she is? Looking for a little girl." He did, talking about Willie knowing who Elizabeth was. So they all go out to the alley. They find Elizabeth, and the remains of the visitors with the doggies. Um,
We're
I
still
think
protecting her, and she's all huddled into the fetal position.
right,
It and looking quite traumatized. I mean, that is honestly kind of it's probably the most brutal thing I feel like we've seen in a
yeah.
long time in V.
I almost feel like the creators decided that they could get away with it because it isn't like flesh and blood. It's just they really only show visitors' skin ripped off, and you see the lizards behind them, which is something we actually don't get much of since the miniseries. So it's actually good to see that in a way, get to see the skin ripped off as a reminder that there are lizard people underneath. The one guy actually had the face ripped off like around his eye, but his eye was still human. They didn't want to pop for the visitor contact at that point, I guess, or anything like that.
Or
That's too
maybe he couldn't
expensive.
wear contacts.
Or maybe that could be the case. Absolutely. But I do agree with you. I think this is my if I had to put money down, this is the choice that it makes it this is the most violent part. The other ones that were potential, the Crivet thing, you didn't really see anything, but maybe that was kind of too scary for people in the 8 o'clock. The fact that the Crivet like two jaws alike in a way, maybe that was something potentially. No other thing that seemed at all and I don't even know what's out there is the fact that they use that electric stun baton a lot. But that it feels like a torture device. Maybe they thought that was too much for primetime TV. Again,
Huh.
I'm just reaching straws. I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
think you're right though. I do think it's this scenario here. So,
But honestly, for that censor board, I don't know. Are you being pro or anti dog here?
good question. That's a good question. Absolutely. Would they have done the same if the aliens were eating the dogs? That's what I want to know.
BLD?
Well, you don't think they eat dogs?
Don't say such things.
That's the scare. That's the scare tactic right there. Humans they can eat, but you start eating the dogs. That's when it gets terrifying. Become terrifying monsters again.
I do give a movie 0 out of 5 stars automatically if they kill the dog. Recently, I watched
Oh,
Eagle Speak. I'll go ahead and spoil
mhm.
it. 0 out of 5 stars for me.
Okay, fair. So you're not a John Wick fan then?
Well, that's a little different. They fridged a dog. You don't really see dogs being fridged very often.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, it did spark revenge and vengeance
I actually
for.
haven't seen John Wick, so I don't know.
Okay,
And it's because the dog dies. I'm like, I just don't think I can watch it.
that's fair. That's fair. It is sad, but it does. It serves a purpose in terms of it is the whole idea behind why he comes out of retirement. But
And also, at least they didn't fridge a chick, but they fridged a dog instead. I just don't know how I feel about it.
I don't know
Anyway, I'm
either.
just saying nobody's better because nobody was fridged to nobody. Just an
There you
old
go.
man wants to get his daughter's bracelet back.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, one last thing I want to say about the dog sequence is when it happened, I forgot I wrote this down. I did like the score when they kind of like made this like horror-esque
Yeah,
version of Elizabeth's theme.
I did notice that. It did seem a bit horror-esque.
And because they have that motif they use for Elizabeth, that's the big one they start using all the time now, and having that horror-esque tinge to it made it even more awesome to me. It also, in a way, teased the whole if we're going to do the Star Wars thing right, maybe we should tease Elizabeth going to the dark side at this point. If they're going to go that way, you might as well go all in
Oh,
because
really? I didn't really.
like she does murder, even though the aliens are against her, she does tell the dogs to kill these guys.
Honestly,
So
I think maybe I just kind of read it a little different. Of this is a young woman. Yes, she's a visitor, and these are aliens, and this is not their intent. But it is a young girl in a back alley with two grown men approaching her. And based on what happens after, it does have a different kind of allegorical representation. Um, that maybe I just read a little differently, that I'm like, you know what? Kill him.
No, and you know what? I do read that with you as well. I feel like the eyes that she had and the music that they had, it led me think of like some very dark side Star Wars type moments. And it let me think that maybe that would be something that they could explore down the line in a way.
I mean,
And in a
that's
way, it would have been kind of interesting because she does have, if we're going to have this kind of power, and it is supposed to be a hybrid between the humans and the aliens, it'd be interesting to see what would happen if it started going dark side, so to speak.
yeah, and it would be kind of interesting to see a character. I'm gonna call it the Frankenstein situation
Right.
of this character isn't necessarily bad. They're
Right.
protecting themselves,
Right.
but in doing so, their behavior is very violent.
Exactly. So they start doing more things like that, like that slippery slope kind of thing. And they don't have, I mean, they're 2 years old. They don't have a moral center yet, really. I mean, they're just developing that moral center here.
Is she too? I'm so confused. Like developmentally, where she's at.
Right. We don't really fully know. That's what I think. We know physically she's about 2 years old. Mentally, though, with the whole age up, I don't know. We learn at the end she can talk full sentences and she seems to be more intelligent, but she still seems to have kind of a young mentality.
You know what
So,
would be a really great, like a better version of this?
hmm.
Lilu from Fifth
Fifth
Element.
Element.
Where is anyone educating this girl? Give her the dictionary. Can she read yet? Let's do
Ooh.
this. Because Diana was kind of doing that. Obviously, we don't necessarily want Diana teaching her. So,
Right.
like, why aren't we not hiring a tutor?
We really should,
Wasn't
absolutely.
anyone in the Resistance a teacher?
Right.
Oh, well, we can't teacher.
I guess Julie would be kind of the ad hoc teacher, maybe. I don't know.
She's busy though. She's doing other things.
I mean, you don't want Elias teaching her, you know?
No
Willie's not
offense to
teaching
bias,
her.
but no. No offense,
Yeah.
Willie, but
No, it's
definitely
Willie.
no.
Definitely no Willie. I mean, Donovan, I don't feel has the patience to be a good teacher. Ham's definitely not teaching anybody.
Wasn't
Good
someone
question.
like an English teacher or a math teacher or a science teacher? Am I
I want to
imagining this?
say, I want to say they were Maggie. I mean, Maggie. I can't remember if Maggie was a nurse or if that was just a get up she wore to seduce Daniel back in the day. Maggie might have been though.
I feel like someone was a teacher at some point. Like,
Yeah. You know what? You're not imagining it, but I don't think we got specifics. It was it was in the final battle when Sancho, I think, leaves says something about this is ridiculous. I was a gardener. She was a teacher. She was this. We don't know she was pointing to, who he was really pointing to, but there was a teacher in the Resistance in the final battle. I believe you're right. So
and there's definitely got to be at least one teacher who's in
you
the
would think so at this
Resistance that
point.
we can just
You would think so. You would think so, but I don't know. I'll find out. I guess maybe Maggie could have done it. Maybe that would have been Maggie's role in the Resistance at that point. If they brought her back, but. All right. Well, let's move on. Of course, now the next bit we get is this is where the hot box comes in. Obviously, the ham fight we had already skipped to a little bit. They get right away. They're brought out from the hot box. They've been in there for a while, and Kyle is brought in to be taken prisoner or control of by Diana. Diana knows that he's in the internment camp. We kind of skipped over that scene earlier. Diana and Lydia discovered exactly where he was. It's kind of funny how like Lydia gave some exposition about Kyle being maybe not exactly on the best terms with his father, but he had quit Stanford to go race motorcycles in a lot of different areas, Nevada, Arizona, California, where Diane jumps to, well, that means he could be behind our lines. And I don't know what she punches in. Just punching Kyle Bates. Boom, there it is. She's got Kyle Bates. They actually have great prison records, I guess, the internment camp, which surprises me. Because if they have great prison records, you got to figure Donovan and Ham's name are not thrown in there. They give fake names, or I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know. That's
But
very
Diana's looking for Donovan, looking for Ham, probably looking for Robin still, at least in connection to Elizabeth, I would think. The idea is she's looking for Kyle to get Elizabeth when Robin Maxwell's in the same place.
They really didn't think that through at all. Not a lot of thinking that's going on in this writer's room. No offense, guys. You weren't planning it that well.
I guess
I will say there is a Diana essentially says, "When I want your opinion, I'll give it to you," to Lydia, which I just think is great.
Yeah, I do like their back and forth. It does add a little bit of something to those visitors, those sequences for sure. So Kyle is brought forth toward Diana at this point, And what happens next? Oh, so Diana basically calls Nathan's bluff out, calls Nathan and says, I now have Kyle, or has Kyle call him. I have Kyle. You will bring me Elizabeth by such and such a time, or else he's gone.
I don't really understand Kyle's behavior in this scene at all.
I don't either.
Didn't get it.
I think he's kind of confused. I don't think he understands how big his father is and why he's going. I don't think he knows anything about Elizabeth at all. Like, does the average person know about Elizabeth?
But he doesn't act like he's in any level of danger when clearly he's with someone who is dangerous. He's kind of flirting with her. I just didn't understand what was happening.
That's true. I guess he's just young, dumb. He just kind of like figures he can get his way out of any situation at this point because he probably already has. Because he feels like he was a rich kid, obviously. So he probably got away with a lot of stuff when he's younger. And even though he's definitely rebelled against his father at this point, he's also kind of like he feels like he's gotten away with a lot of stuff on his own because he probably has money too. And so he probably figures he can get his way out of any situation if he needs to. I think that might be what's going on there. But you're right. It is a little strange. It is very little strange. Kyle's kind of like, I don't know what's going on here. Sure, I'll shake your hand, I guess. Whatever. But then we go forth to back to Elizabeth and the crowd creole. Elizabeth starts talking. Julie and Elias are very happy about that. And then Roller, Lackey, goes and does a raid on the Club Creole.
I didn't realize that was the same guy.
That is the same guy, yes. Lackey performs the raid.
The most forgettable person.
He really is. I gotta tell you, I watched this series a bunch of times when I was younger. At least, like, it probably wasn't until the sixth time I kind of started remembering that he was actually a character. So, now obviously Nathan's getting desperate after the conversation with Diana, and he doesn't have Elizabeth. He's like, "I've changed my mind. You can go ahead and raid them because I'm basically pulling a Hail Mary at this point." Now, what I want to know is how do they not find the secret door? Like, it feels like the secret door feels like it's pretty easy. And you've got all those cops in there.
Elizabeth's powers.
There you go. Maybe that's what it is. Elizabeth's kind of Jedi mind tricked them. This is not the freezer door you're looking for.
I would see if she could do that.
I would too.
I would be testing her powers. This would be like this would be a superhero montage, like in Shazam. Let's see what you can do, kid. Show me what you got.
I like that idea. Of course, she went up getting shot. She's not bulletproof. That'd be bad if they try to do something like that. But so we get to go. Julie and Elizabeth. Julie takes Elizabeth back to her apartment. Cut back to the.
Is that more safe?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I guess for someone who Julie even says earlier on that you can't have her in the open because William knew. So she's gonna bring her out into the open into her apartment where Nathan Bates obviously has been before or something to that effect. So like, how is that even like, I don't understand how it's safe at all.
What we need to do is get this kid a goth look with the fingerless gloves. It's right there. It's out in the open.
It absolutely would work to do it. Of course, that might make Kyle more attracted to her potentially.
Oh dear.
Leather jacket thing going on. I think Kyle is bad. Mistakes were definitely made. So you go back to the camp, and Donovan's smart idea has been cutting up hose, and they're going to slide down the electric wire after they de-electrify it over the crivet moat. It's a fun little action sequence. Not gonna lie, it's kind of cool seeing it. Donovan, of course, goes over first. I remember my first thought being, Donovan's going to go over first? What kind of hero is that? But I went, oh, he's got to test it. So if somebody's going to fall, if the wire doesn't hold, he's got to go into the electric. So that was okay by me finally. They do mostly get over. Ham gets the kid in his back. Robin gets over. Ham gets a kid in his back. And then the interesting place is here, Kyle and Diana are together. And Kyle notices them trying to escape. And give Kyle credit. He wants to distract Diana by engaging in the only thing he knows how at this point, it seems like, to flirt with her. And yes, Diana is still a freak. Diana's still a freak. She's loving the humans, I guess.
Diana's a strange woman. Maybe she just needs a lot of like positive feedback. I wonder what parenting is like for the visitors. Maybe she's like the visitor version of daddy issues.
That actually would make a lot of sense. I mean, I'm going to bet that the lizards are not very comforting and not very positive reinforcement type. From what we've seen, it just doesn't feel like that's their go-to.
It would have been a lot better if instead of being his lover, if she was the child of the leader.
The leader guy. Oh, that could have been interesting. That could have been very interesting.
And that way she couldn't get fired from her position. And she would be she would be like Kyle, that rich kid who just got run up the ladder.
There you go. There you go. Well, Diana sees them, goes out, kills a dime store Michael Gross, steroid Michael Gross, unfortunately.
R.I.P.
Ham gives a nice little salute to her, like she can't shoot across the cricket boat. Like, yeah, what are you doing? Just go. Diana almost.
Yeah, you are gonna. If he is not on some wanted list by F5.
Diana hates him. Must hate him at this point, even beyond Donovan at this point. But here's a question I have for you. Kyle starts faking he's sick or injured and then like kicks the guard and runs away. How does Kyle actually get out? Because like they get out over the crib moat with the electric and the fence. Like
I like to think he stole a Jeep.
Maybe I guess like maybe in the distraction he kind of got out the front door because there's nobody watching the front door because they're all going out of the resistance. Maybe I guess that's got to be what happened, right? Because they don't show it. Kyle just gets out of the house and all of a sudden
every time we see him, he's in LA somehow.
Yeah, somehow he made his way all the way back to LA. That's the important thing. Not only out of the camp, back to LA. Well, we jump back out into Julia's apartment where Nathan does show up begging that Diana or that Elizabeth, that Julie will help find Elizabeth. And then Elizabeth kind of comes out of the shower. And it's a good moment because Nathan's like, what is going on? What is this? And Julie has her quick thinking, my cousin Betty from Tucson. Fighting is real bad there.
Isn't Betty a nickname for Elizabeth?
It is sometimes short for Elizabeth, yes.
Gonna be honest, Betty, a bit of an archaic name, not used much. I only know it in conjunction with Archie, but pretty sure it's Elizabeth.
It is short for Elizabeth.
She is not good at lying.
No, she's not. You could have chosen any other name. Could have been anything, even like Robin. Even if you used Robin's name, that would have been smarter than Betty.
I mean, even that would have been bad. Like, I mean, listen, I'm not necessarily great at thinking on my feet. I probably would have said Andrew, and then I would have thought, why did I say Andrew? But like
Andrew, Anna, Andrewetta, yeah, or Andrew.
But like, you also maybe should have had a cover in mind already.
Yeah, exactly.
If anyone asks, your name's Stella.
I mean, the cousin from Tucson is kind of a cool angle. I guess that makes sense that they would come in. He would try to be coming into the open city from a resistant or a war-torn. Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely.
But yeah, the name, I don't know. Surprisingly, Julie doesn't seem to be too concerned about Kyle, though. He's like, oh, well, we got him. We smile at the end. We got him. But Nathan's still got Kyle on his mind, obviously. Then we jump back to Donovan with Ham and with Billy. And we learn that they got separated from Robin somehow in the darkness. And Robin is no longer.
How?
That's what I want to know, because they went over at the same time. Ham was with their Donovan. It was a Donovan, Robin, Ham sandwich. So I don't know how Robin got away from them. But yet, it happened. I feel it's a poor writing choice. I guess they wanted to have her make her way back into town on her own, maybe, or something to that effect, but it didn't make a lot of sense.
It just doesn't work for me.
I agree. The writing crew, you dropped it on that one. But I think they made up for it in this, well, kind of made up for it in this part. Donovan, Ham, and Billy are there. And of course, Donovan's like, I'm going to take the kid with us. I like a couple of moments here because Ham first is like, we're not taking the kid with us. You're an idiot. But it's not because he doesn't like kids, like which is your initial instinct is like he doesn't like the kids or anything. He's like, no, I got a kid here. But it's about what if we don't make it? And you're like, okay, Ham, I see you. That's a very good point. He's just very rational about it. Here comes the one minorly weird situation, which I overlooked, but it's okay. All of a sudden, Annie shows up. From where? Where is she coming from? She's just like,
where are they? Because I thought they were kind of in the outskirts of town. So I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. But like, how would she know they were there?
That's
very confusing.
She just kind of shows up out of nowhere, and it's like, okay, she has an M16 now, and she's a babysitter of Billy's, so it's a kind of a convenient way to get out of the situation. But I don't mind it. I kind of like the fact that she says that there's a camp up north or something that a lot of the people of the town had gone to, which also kind of wrapping it around back to the beginning of the episode where that feels more like it's a occupied territory where there's a camp that they kind of retreated to. Most of the town members have retreated to avoid the aliens at this point. And Billy's going to go with her.
Also worth noting, the red dust still works there.
Still worked up there, right? Which just means we're in that close in that borderline where we were talking about. I do love, I'm a sucker for it. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of like the Newt moment where he does finally talk and he turns around. And what does he say? A gooder. I give him the view sign. I love that because, of course, Ham, and no one's called him, it's called Donovan. Ham's called him Gooder. That's the only thing he's known as. Ham keeps calling him Gooder. He thinks Gooder's his name in a way. I love that at that moment. And I like Mike's response, like the smile and the smirk on his face. Yep, I'm Gooder.
I would have liked to have seen Ham kind of have a smirk on that one.
Yeah, because I think Ham should have had his birthday because it makes a lot of sense. He does have a kind of like that stoic look, like, all right, get out of here, kid. I do like that episode. Then, of course, the next part of it is Donovan and Ham get to steal a Skyfighter. This felt so tagged on to me.
Before that, they're wandering around town.
Again.
So conspicuously. It's like, I just did a fake mustache and twirl it.
Really? Seriously? What the hell's going on?
It's like cartoonish. It's ridiculous.
I gotta say, stealing the X-wing. I'm gonna say the Skyfighter. It feels so tacked on. Like,
and it looks so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like the graphics. There's so much recycled stuff. They're doing even more of the Star Trek kind of like acting. And even when we cut to Donovan and Ham in the fighter,
Skyfighter, yeah.
Donovan really isn't like Mark Singer really isn't acting at all, and then Ham is just looking like he might puke, which I feel like is the only thing he could think to do in the moment. And it's just like emote something.
Because the worst part of it is they keep shutting back at different parts of the previous fights we've seen, previous Skyfighters we've seen, and at one point, the visitor, they keep shooting back at the visitor, and the visitor is recycled visitor footage. It's not anybody else. Donovan, obviously, when you look at it, you watch it, Donovan makes some kind of maneuver where he kind of flips around and gets behind the other ship. But it's not exactly clear.
Visually, I had no idea that that's what happened. I thought that they were in front the whole time. And I was like,
they were in front. And then all of a sudden, there's one moment where Donovan kind of does something with the thing, and him and Ham both kind of go, like they're flying up. And also the next thing you know is that they come behind the other fighter, which really shouldn't have happened anyway, to be honest. Like, the visitor, if you're a competent visitor Skyfighter pilot, that feels like that's a maneuver that really wouldn't have worked. But then he easily dispatches them, and that's it. And then Donovan and Ham escape to survive a different day.
But at this at this point, do we assume that Donovan is actually the best pilot on planet Earth?
Definitely in LA.
Applied that so fast.
Ham does say you're getting better, Gooder. You're improving, Gooder.
Like at this point, how many Earthlings know how to fly these fighter ships?
I don't think many. I don't think many at all. Donovan is probably the best. He is the greatest of all time at this point. He is the Han Solo.
Oh no!
Of the LA Resistance at this point. That makes Ham Chewie with a lot less hair.
Oh, I was gonna say, did that make him Lando?
Oh, I can say Ham being Lando or Chewie. That's a good point. Chris might be more Chewie. Chris is definitely hairier, so when Chris comes around, maybe he's Chewie.
And also, they have like the kind of animosity of the past and stuff like that.
That good call. All right. And Ham, I think, could pull off smooth if he needed to, if he really needed to. Not that he wants to, but he could. Then we go back. And we see the introduction, or the reuniting, I guess, so to speak, of Nathan and Kyle. And this is actually a good Kyle sequence for me. I did like this. It's a little bratty. It is a little bit bratty. I'm not gonna lie there, but it feels like it's the first step. He's like, I don't like what you're doing, Dad, and I'm not gonna be. I'm just letting you know that you don't need to do whatever you're doing. It feels like he went there to say, you're obviously doing something involving me, and it was a deal with the visitors. So I'm free. I'm going to let you know I'm free, so you don't do whatever you were going to do, because I'm sure it was kind of bad news. Because he already doesn't trust Nathan. It feels like he doesn't trust Nathan at all, and he just walks out on him. I like this setup because we don't know what happened between them in the past. We just know that Kyle obviously is not a big fan, and he walks out without saying. Nathan has the whole, "Well, where are you going?" And Kyle does the great brooding look back, and then walks away. Like, doesn't even answer him. I'm interested to see what you think about this scene and where Kyle fits on your radar at this moment. Is this a good Kyle or a bad Kyle?
I'm just not into his character as a whole.
Okay.
I don't see where he's coming from yet. It'd be interesting if we see him opposing his father, but I don't inherently know if I oppose his father yet. He's not worse than the visitors.
That's a good call.
Like the visitor, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like Nathan is my friend. So until he becomes worse than the visitors, Kyle, shut up. Stop flirting with Diana. Grow up. Realize who the actual enemy is.
Well, he does. He's flirting with Diana with definitely more to help the resistance escape. Let's be honest. He definitely
True. But he doesn't seem that antagonistic toward the visitors, right, even though he's being held at a work camp. I don't know.
I kind of feel like he is someone who didn't get involved a lot. He's kind of a loner and just like, so the fact that he was picked up by the guys, he probably doesn't like the visitors, but he's kind of like, I don't want to join up with any resistance or anything like that. I kind of want to just like survive.
Yeah, like he doesn't look that old. Like when did he drop out of Stanford and start racing motorcycles?
Right.
Like, what's the timeline versus when did the visitors arrive? What are we working with?
You gotta assume it was before the war started, because I mean I don't know if Stanford was even around. Like the colleges, were they even existing during the war at that point? Were there still classes while we were at World War with an alien race? Even if it was a subtle war, it wasn't like a nuclear war, it was like a subtle like takeover. I don't know. I mean, I think they were kind of probably still going, but I don't know. It's a good question.
I mean, they outlawed scientists. So
right.
Like, what are you getting? A liberal arts degree? What if he was a biology major and he dropped out because he couldn't get his degree?
That could be it too. We don't know. We don't know what Kyle was going to school for. No idea. I don't know if we ever learn. We don't know.
And that would be an interesting component to add to this story.
It would have been good. Yeah, that would have been kind of cool if he was like a scientist of some kind and maybe he just didn't do it because he was worried about it or something. Huh.
I mean, they probably would have dropped all those programs because they like couldn't continue to go on with them.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh my God! Can you imagine all those college? Oh well, college was cheaper back then. Never mind. College loans. And I'm like, oh, well, those were actually affordable back then.
What's that? Affordable? What? Anyway, go back to the Club Creole to end the episode. We have a Julie and Mike reunion, which is they're trying to like cling to this romantic relationship ish. They care to do. There's the music comes in during the reunion, and Mike's like, of time. Oh, I have time. Oh, okay, we're gonna go talk about it. Instead, we switched to my favorite, the better part of it, which is Elias and Ham's reunion, which is very cool.
Yes.
Of course, it's a very much in character. What do you want? Whatever's in the house. Big old glass of water.
And which overflows, and they cut on a still of it overflowing, which was so funny. It's very comedic, very like I feel like this could be in Cheers.
Yeah, it actually felt like Cheers, actually. And Ham had this great like, look and smile on his face and everything else. What I do want to note there, though, is the score is something that comes back. It's a motif that comes into play. I don't even know what I would call it, but it comes back into play a lot. It's like, and it's my favorite part of the weekly series score. It's like this kind of like, it sounds more epic than it is, really, but it's like, dun, dun. Excuse me, but it feels like I really like this score part. I know it comes back into play. So keep that in mind if you watch it again, at least like the last few minutes of it. It tends to be like an ending theme score or something. But I do really like it. Give credit where credit's due. So, all right. That is the end of the episode. That's where we end this week's episode. What are your final thoughts on how the episode was? Whether you liked it, didn't like it, what you think is going to go on in the future? What are your thoughts?
This was, of the 3 episodes, my favorite of the 3. I really like where we're going with Mike and Ham, and I do think the whole dynamic between what's going on with Nathan and Diana and Julia, this kind of like triad of hierarchy of I'm gonna best you, no, I'm gonna best you, but I'm gonna lie to you to get to you to that.
Right.
Don't like anything that's happening with Robin or Elizabeth. It's not my thing. Not really enjoying Kyle. But like, the whole Elias and Willie in the Club Creole, like that's all very interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree. So this was actually my favorite of the first 3 as well. It felt like it knew what it was doing more, whereas Liberation Day and Dreadnought felt like they were kind of treading water, trying to figure out where they wanted to go. There's a little bit of establishment of things in this episode. We get to see Donovan and Ham together, which I always love. Donovan and Ham are the 2 great connections there. I do love the Nathan Bates storyline overall because he is probably the most interesting angle because we do have that in between you don't know exactly where he stands. Like some days you're kind of like, okay, he's an evil asshole. He could have just killed the visitors. Yeah, he's selling out to them. And other times he says stuff like, or he's just kind of trying to buy time and keep LA alive while they work on a way to permanently get rid of the visitors. But he's also at the same time definitely trying to take advantage of the situation and grab some power too. So it's a very layered character, a very layered angle. You can go either way with him still and feel like it would be believable. If you went darker side and helped the visitors more, you believe it. If you went lighter side and helped the resistance more, you'd believe that too, to a degree.
He's basically Donovan's mom all over again.
To a degree, yeah. Except for now, he's just Kyle's dad. So it kind of does replace that scenario a little bit. Hopefully Kyle will get better for you as he goes on a little bit. I don't know if he will, but I understand that. I agree with you on most of the parts as well. I don't care about Robin at all. Robin could leave and that would probably be for the better. Elizabeth could leave and that would be for the better. Of course, we would have to change the whole angle of the show. And that's the worst part about it is that this is obviously becoming a MacGuffin that we're going to have to deal with and a driving force of the show. And that really is ultimately, I think, partially what killed it to me. Because we are definitely far away from the original intentions. This is not about a fascist takeover anymore. This is about a young chosen one with Jedi powers and how they can. I don't even know. I don't even know what Diana's going to do with her if she finds her. Really.
Yeah, like the entire genre changed.
Right, exactly, and that's the problem with it. It still clings on to some things, like I said. So it's still worth watching at the moment for me. It hasn't jumped the shark yet. But we're going to see how it goes as we move forward. So, your favorite character so far in the weekly series after 3 episodes?
Ooh, I mean, honestly, Ham is growing on me.
Okay, Ham keeps growing. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm still think I'm a Donovan guy, and I'm mostly Donovan and Ham together. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
And we're gonna find sometimes when they get split up, they're definitely better together. Obviously, and they're fine separately, but when they work together, there is a magic there that can't be matched by any other combination of.
I think that's what they keep putting them together.
Yeah, there's an actual electric spark there, much more than Donovan and Julie, for that matter, at this point. So that's why I'm going to see that. I think the Donovan and Julie angles start kind of fading away as we go on, but we'll get there. All righty. Well, that will do it for us this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks to discuss the next episode, which I believe is called The Deception. The Deception. And this is a fun one, if I remember correctly. Definitely a sci-fi tropey fun one. Maybe not getting away from the fascism a little bit more still, but there's definitely some fun to this angle, which we'll soon learn about. But until next time, where can the folks find you?
I can be found on the YouTubes at Legoland13. I could also be found on, well, you can find everything else I'm connected to through there.
Okay, there you go. You can find me at Paul_Denuzio on X, at PLD Projects on Threads, and PLD Projects all over the place on YouTube and on your audio, which is wherever you're hearing it now. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, leave us comments, leave us reviews. Hopefully you liked it. Definitely had a couple of people have been contacting me, leaving some comments. That's been kind of cool to see. And if you want to support the channel even further, you can join us at patreon.com/PLD Projects. Join people like Austin Cadell, Jeremiah Morris, Matthew Kearns, Brennan Buckingham, Jeff Ulsterman, and a bunch of others. Really help me keep the lights on. I really appreciate you here at PLD Projects. Yeah. Otherwise, I guess that will do it. I did take Crown Jewels took off this week because of my trip. We'll be back next week. We will have our Holy Snokes episode next week. Well, the time you're seeing this, that's right. I forgot that this is actually coming out a week and a half after I recorded it. So yeah, you're hearing Crown Jewels will actually be there tomorrow for you. You have seen Holy Snokes this week, and you'll also have seen that myself and PJ Campbell have started our trek into Friday the 13th. Our first episode definitely already aired, and I believe when this airs, the second one will have aired as well with part 2, which we haven't even recorded yet. So really time jumping there a lot, but that was a lot of fun episodes. Those were fun episodes to get into. PJ and I's heart are really in horror. We have done a lot of episodes about other franchises and things, but there's a certain spark of something when we go back into the horror franchise.
Because horror's the best.
Absolutely. So, all right, guys. Until next time, 2 weeks from now. Right then, Nama. Right then.